Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I really wanted to make a quick video. I don't want to make this video too long or anything like that because I feel like a lot of what I'm going to say in this video has already been said by a lot of other people, but I thought it would be really fun to make a dedicated review with spoilers. This video is going to have spoilers in it, so if you haven't read this book or haven't read this series, definitely like skip this video until you've read it. But I wanted to do my overall views and opinions about the new Sarah J. Maas book, House of Flame and Shadow. So, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Sarah J. Maas. I have not read Throne of Glass yet, so take what I'm about to say knowing that little detail, but A Court of Thorns and Roses is one of my favorite series ever, and I think she did such a fantastic job with that series. And I'm going to talk about this one because I do love Sarah. I love how she creates her characters. I love a lot of aspects of Sarah J. Maas's books. And I was so excited to read this, but it's probably my least favorite Sarah J. Maas book that I've read. And I'm not saying that it was the worst book of all time by any means, but it was definitely my least favorite Sarah J. Maas book. And I'm going to kind of talk about it because I just kind of feel like talking about it. You know what I mean? I have some notes here that I actually wrote while I was reading the book. So I'm just going to kind of like go through my notes and then explain each thing that I was thinking during the reading process. But what I want to start with is all the positive things about this book. I want to talk about the things that I really liked and all that kind of thing. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. So it's the lowest I've ever rated a Sarah J. Maas book. I loved the mini crossover that we had. It wasn't like extreme. It wasn't like this huge crossover. And to be honest, I wasn't really exactly sure what I really wanted with the crossover. I didn't really know if I wanted it to be like a major crossover or just kind of like a little one. I didn't know what my preference was going to be. I think it really depended on how she did it. And with this one, I thought it was pretty good. I was really hoping for all of the characters. Like, we didn't really get a lot of some of my favorite characters from that world. But for the crossover, I think it was done pretty well. I think we got just enough of the characters where it didn't take over this entire book, but we did get to see some of their interactions, and I thought it was really interesting. In fact, some of my favorite scenes were of the crossover scenes where they're in the caves and she was with Nesta and Asriel. I thought that was really good. I love seeing a little tiny sliver of Cassian and Rhysand as well, though I think Rhysand's character was a little bit out of character in this book. I just feel like she didn't do Rhysand too realistically. Like, I feel like she could have made Rhysand a bit more intimidating. Like, I feel like Sarah J. Maas is falling a little bit short with Rhysand in recent books where she's kind of trying to make him too good of a person and he would never do anything mean ever. And I just don't like that. I think that she needs to kind of remember that Rhys can have a little bit of a bad side if he's protecting his people. If he's protecting his people, he will do what he needs to do to protect them. And I think that she's falling short a little bit there with Rhys at times. But with that said, that's not really the most important part of the book, but I did like the crossover scenes. The other thing I really liked was Rune and Lydia. Favorite characters out of this whole series. I freaking love Rune, and I think Rune and Lydia were a great little storyline to push the second book and this book forward. I think we all really like that couple. I think they just have a really good dynamic. It's been really fun to see them grow. I think that in this book though, the romance was a little bit rushed, which I understand why. There was so much freaking going on in this book that I feel like she had to rush it. Otherwise this book would have been like 1,500 pages, which I don't want to read that. I really don't want to read a 1,500 page book. But I think that if she would have cut out some of the other stupid freaking plot lines that didn't need to be in this book, she could have focused more on Rune and Lydia, and I think it would have been so much more enjoyable, which I'm going to get to that whole thing in a little bit about like too many points of views and stuff like that. But I love Rune and Lydia, and I honestly kind of like Tharian. I know a lot of people don't like Tharian, but I kind of like him. I think he's a unique, complex character. He's kind of an idiot. I'm not gonna lie, like, he makes really dumb decisions, and I saw a really interesting TikTok actually of this guy who said Tharian is literally the most random character, because what ended up happening with Tharian is he fell up, which means he kind of fell into this group of characters for like what reason? Like, what did Tharian really bring to this whole group that's saving the world? He just kind of like fell into it, but like for what reason? Like, that's Tharian, and I'm like, okay, I don't know, but I still kind of like him though. Like, I'm excited to see his relationship with Sathya. I think that could be a really interesting relationship if she takes that route with it. I think that maybe they could be in like a forced marriage type of situation if they end up falling in love or whatever. I think that would be a really fun thing to see. Yes, he's an idiot, but I don't hate him. for some reason. I just think he makes really bad decisions. So I do kind of like him, but there's a lot of characters that I'm just like, every time Ethan shows up in these books, I'm not gonna lie, like, I get so bored. I'm like, oh, it's Ethan's chapters again. Like, I don't know what it is about Ethan's chapters in this book and in the last book where I'm just like, this is so boring. Like, I always feel like Ethan is on like these weird side quests that don't make any sense or they don't need to be in the book. The secret plotline wasn't anything that needed to be in the book. It didn't really go anywhere. It felt like a whole bunch of filler because she didn't even wrap the secret plotline up. And I feel like he was trying to get her to be the new Prime or whatever, but like that didn't play out. And it was just this whole pointless plotline that just did not need to be in the book at all. And I think if she would have taken that whole entire thing out and just let Ethan be the Prime at the end, it would have made this book like 200 pages shorter. So I feel like a lot of Ethan's chapters in this book and the last book are just not needed. I loved Lydia's story about being a mother to twin boys and seeing like that whole background. I thought that was a really interesting thing to do because I find that a lot of authors don't include mothers in their fantasy novels. I've read a couple books with moms, but I really like that Sarah J Maas included that. I think it was a really, really interesting kind of direction to take Lydia's character, and I think it added a lot of depth to her character as well, and it made a lot of her backstory make just a little bit more sense to me. I thought that backstory was great, and I really, really enjoyed that. I know some people didn't love it, but I really, really liked Lydia's story. In fact, Lydia is one of my favorite characters in this whole series. I think she's the most interesting. One thing I think that Sarah J Maas does pretty well with her characters is she makes characters pretty, like, she makes them not perfect. So a lot of characters have, you know, shameful things that they have done, or they have guilt for things that they have done. They've done bad things, they've done good things. She sees them get over the things that they have done and try to better themselves. Like, she makes her characters very kind of flawed at times, and I've always really liked that about her characters because they aren't perfect. So I feel like she does a pretty good job with that, and I feel like a lot of the characters in this book series did have some interesting arcs. Not all of them though, which I'm going to get into next. So let's talk about the things that I have on my notes, okay? So the first thing I wrote was, excuse the grammar when I'm writing notes, when I'm reading, I'm not like paying attention to that, but I said, pulls things out of left field, the language pill, easy to write herself out of things, and Dec and Hypaxia are tools to solve problems. Okay, so one thing I noticed in this book more than any other book that Sarah J Maas has written is how easy she writes herself out of problems, and she's been using Hypaxia for this. It's literally her character. So because she's a witch, she can literally bring anyone back to life. She's literally the tool to save every single person. She's the tool to solve every single problem. Like, that's literally the only reason Hypaxia is in these books, is for Sarah to be able to write herself out of corners. And I feel like Dec is kind of the same way. He has no personality other than the fact that he can like do tech stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm just kind of like, can we give Declan a little bit more of a personality other than the fact that he's just techie? Can we give Hypaxia some sort of personality other than the fact that she's just like the witch that solves all your problems? And I also feel like she just didn't know how to write herself out of certain things, so she just wrote random things and was like, oh, people are just gonna be like whatever about it. Like, nobody wants to see Feyre learn a language. Like, that's just annoying. So I'm just gonna have her take this language bean or language pill, and she's gonna know the language of the Valaris characters. And I'm just like, I literally started laughing at the language pill thing. I think everybody did. And that's just one example of how Sarah J Maas wrote herself out of a corner. And I think she did it a lot. Or like, they'll get like a new power out of nowhere and you're like, when did this character get this power? Or like, when was this power able to like do this thing? Like, all of a sudden they just find out that their power can like fix this problem and you're like, since when? I don't understand. So she did that a lot in this book. More than I've ever seen her do in any other book. The next one. Bryce and Hunt, no chemistry, which started in book 2. They have bad communication, and she's telling, not showing. So I've said this since book 2, they have zero chemistry in this entire book. Zero. None. If you're looking for a romance book, you're not getting it with this one. I mean, you're getting it with Rune and Lydia. There's definitely a cute romance there. But Bryce and Hunt in this book series are the most painful characters to read I think I've ever read in my life. They have no chemistry. Hunt is literally this submissive, passive, like weak man that just follows Bryce around the entire book, and Bryce is like this narcissistic, mean bully. basically. So what bothers me so much about this book is the fact that like Hunt is literally like a 500-year-old angel who has already been through an entire rebellion. He's been a slave for like 200 years. He's lost every single person that he loves. He's been through so much torture. Like, he's lived so long and he has so much knowledge and wisdom about just the world and the politics and rebelling and all that kind of thing. And then Bryce Quinlan walks in, 25-year-old little half human, half fae, thinking that she can change the world and like save the world, and everybody needs to listen to her because she knows everything and she has a plan, but she's not going to tell anybody about her plan, but she expects every single person to follow her plan because she knows how to solve this problem. And she's reckless, she makes stupid decisions, she doesn't take anything seriously. She talks to like every character in this book, including like enemies, royalty, people that she's trying to like, you know, confront, just everyone. Like, even the Valaris characters, she's like, talks to them like she's 15 years old. And I'm like, can you please just take something seriously for once? You know, like, you're literally so reckless in the way that you're talking to these characters. Like, he could literally shoot you with magic right now and you would die. You know what I mean? Like, why are you being such a brat in the way that you're like handling these situations? I couldn't stand her. And then every single time that Hunt had an opinion, or he didn't agree with what she was doing, or he was a little bit scared because he didn't want to get tortured again, which, by the way, the torture scenes in this are just insanely descriptive. And the second that he shows any fear or any uncertainty about her plan that she's not even really explaining to anybody, she gets pissed. I need you fully, and I need you to follow me, and I need you to like be with me. As if being with her and supporting her and helping her is basically just like following her around on her leash that she has around his neck, but he can't say anything. He can't have any opinion. It's so annoying to me. I freaking hate this so much. Like, this, I could literally rant about this for an entire video if I wanted to. Like, I cannot stand when authors make these strong female characters that are so unlikable. They have no vulnerabilities, they have no fear, they have no uncertainties or insecurities about themselves that hold them back. They don't lean on their friends, the people they love the most, to help them through these things or to like gain wisdom, or they don't work together to like create a plan. They literally think that they're the most like intelligent, powerful person in the world, and it loses all relatability. Like, nobody can relate to this person that Bryce is. Like, she's such a bad character. And I see authors doing this all the time with strong female characters, where they make like the male characters weak and stupid and idiots to try to push the main female character into more power, into more strength. So they write the other characters to be idiots. They can be teammates. Like, stop making the side characters all like these tools to hold up your main character, because that's literally what she did in this book. Every single side character she was trying to give their own plot to, but in reality they were all just there to be little minions for Bryce, so Bryce could be the savior of everything, right? And her attitude was, she was so narcissistic. She was so arrogant in this book. It was painful to read. In fact, I thought that Sarah J. Maas was actually trying to do something with Bryce to make her, like, give her some interesting character arc. Because I was like, Sarah J. Maas can't think that we're gonna like her. Like, she has to be doing something to make us like dislike her for some reason. But no, she just made her really unlikable. For what reason? And it's why everyone liked A Court of Thorns and Roses, because the men and the women worked together, right? They both were strong characters. They both had their strengths. None of them were fumbling idiots. None of them were these passive little minions that just went along with everything. Like, they worked together as a team. They were all strong characters in their own way. And I feel like Sarah J. Maas is one step away from going that route with her characters, where she starts writing her characters really, really flat, and they have absolutely no personality other than just being strong and smart and all-knowing about everything. And it's just, can't stand it. I can't stand it. So that's my rant about that. I'm gonna try to like make everything quicker now. Oh, I said Bryce is the alpha hole of this book, which is true, because I think that Sarah J. Maas has forgotten who her audience is. We don't think a male trying to protect his mate because he loves her so much makes a male an alpha hole. Like, do you know who your audience is? We love that shit. It's why we liked A Court of Thorns and Roses. Hunt trying to protect Bryce because he loves her doesn't make him an alpha hole. What do you mean? Like, Bryce was the alpha hole. She was the narcissist that didn't listen to anybody, and you cannot argue with me on that. Like, I feel like she became what she hates in this book. Okay, I'm getting mad. Not enough romance. I'm a romance girly. Sarah J. Maas is great at romance. There was not enough romance in this book. But there were like sex scenes, but they were so random, I felt nothing. I was just kind of like, okay, this is awkward. Like, I don't really want to read this. Her and Hunt aren't even like connecting. The only time her and Hunt connected in this entire book was when they were doing it. And it felt awkward and out of place. And it was just, she's like trying to be a romance writer while not giving us any romance, right? She's trying to be the romance author that she was in A Court of Thorns and Roses without actually like doing it. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes any sense. Convoluted, too much info dumping. This book had so much in it that I don't even know what the heck she was thinking. Like half, like I said, a ton of the plot lines led nowhere. They didn't even need to be in this book. I mean, maybe in future books she's gonna bring like Sigrid back or something like that. I don't know, but like we didn't need so much of Sigrid in this book if we weren't gonna get any conclusion. There was just so many plot lines and plot holes, and like it just, what did I say? It was sagging under its own weight. Like it got so heavy and you were just, there was so much info dumping and just so much information being thrown at you at all times that you were just trying to stay afloat. Like nothing was hitting. Nothing was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Because there was just so much stuff that you're just like, I literally can't breathe. Like I'm just trying to catch it all because you're literally throwing like 700 tennis balls at me at a time. And I can only catch a few, you know what I mean? So I feel like she was a little convoluted, and I was telling Travis that she is getting too big for her own britches, and I feel like when authors or movie makers do this, things start falling apart. And I feel like I was using Marvel as an example before. Marvel got too big, and when things get too big, like universes and portals and alternate realities and time travel and blah blah blah, things start to fall apart and not make sense, and it just becomes way too big and too convoluted, and you're like, wait, huh? Like, how does that even make sense? Like the whole black hole thing at the end, I'm like, so a black hole ate a black hole that she made without even using the swords, by the way. So the sword and the dagger could make a black hole because that's how she got like rid of Polaris or whatever, but she actually didn't even need the swords because she shot the core and destroyed the core, so the core made a black hole. But then she made her own black hole without even using the sword. She just made a black hole with her magic powers. So she didn't even need the swords to make the black hole to shove the Asterion. So that whole sword thing, sword dagger thing, didn't even really matter that much, really, at the end. You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that where things just start to get so convoluted and stuff, and it's like, oh, one thing I enjoyed, I forgot to mention this, is all of their powers getting stronger. That was really interesting. Do I think that a lot of them were just a little bit too strong? Yes. I think that when you start making your characters too strong, it starts to become a little unbelievable, and you're like, okay, so like now everybody is just like incredibly strong and they can do all this crazy stuff. So that was kind of like, like I wish they got a little bit more powers, but maybe not to the extent that they did. But it was really cool to see what their powers kind of turned into and seeing them like come into their strength. That was really kind of fun to see because, you know, you get so attached to these characters, and to see them like grow like that in strength was really kind of satisfying. Oh, I said black holes, WTF. Sigrid plotline was pointless. Didn't need swords at the end. Just talked about that. Bryce and Rune are reckless and impulsive. So I talked a little bit about that with Bryce. She is reckless. Like that, some of the things that she did, I was like, why are you doing that? Are you even thinking? You know what I mean? Like, are you crazy? Or she would just do things, she would just think of something and she would have like this plan and then she'd just do it and she wouldn't tell anybody about it, and she was just really, really reckless, like opening the coffin. But the funny thing is I feel like Rune is reckless too. Like, even in the last book, I felt like Rune did things where I'm like, Rune, come on. Like how he closed his mind to the Hind and he wouldn't let her in. It's like, this is like a really bad time to get like butthurt. Like, just open up your mind to her because you might be able to like fix the situation if you keep your mind open to her, right? Or when he shot her in the leg, just things like that. I feel like both Bryce and Rune can come across as impulsive and reckless. And I love Rune. I do. But that's just one thing about him that I'm just like, come on, dude. Like, you need to think things through just a little bit. POV switches. I couldn't immerse myself. Okay, so I know that a lot of people have said this, and I'm not a multiple POV girl a lot of times, but I can read them. It just has to be done well. And the problem with this one was there's just, like I said, too many plot lines. There was too many loose threads. There was too many things going on, too many characters, too many side characters. Like, you literally have to keep track of so much stuff in this book, and there's so many things going on that she has to jump from character to character. And by the time you're getting immersed into this character story, she switches to the next one. And you're like, okay. And then you have to get immersed into this one. And right when you're getting immersed, she switches to the next one. And it was so bad, I feel like, at times. Like, sometimes the characters would only get, like, one page of their POV, and it was like, oh, it's getting exciting, like, it's getting interesting, and then it would switch. And I know the authors do this for suspense, but I feel like sometimes you have to, like, pull through and tell the whole scene, because otherwise the reader just gets annoyed, because you're like, you're, like, keeping me on the edge of my seat, but never giving me that satisfying feeling to where I can fully just be excited and be into it and, like, just fully read and soak this thing in. You just keep chopping it off, and then I have to start again, like, 5 pages later, and I'm just, like, over it because I'm not there mentally anymore. You know what I mean? And I feel like she did that pretty bad with a lot of these POVs, and I just felt like I couldn't immerse myself in any of them, and I wasn't getting attached to any of them. And I felt like I kept wanting to just, like, stop reading. Like, once a POV would change, I would be like, okay, and then I'd want to, like, close the book and go do something else, because then I'd have to, like, switch my brain over to this POV. And when you have a short attention span anyways, sometimes that can be really irritating and make you just want to, like, stop reading. Plot lost tightness. So I talked about that a little bit with how when you make your world and your universe too big, things will start to fall apart. I feel like that's kind of what happened. This wasn't a tight plot. I just feel like it was kind of like fireworks. Pew, pew, pew. Like, every, like, character has some random million things going on, and you just are like, wait, hold on a second, and then you can't remember anything that was going on in the last book. Like, somebody mentioned Victoria, the little girl in the box at the bottom of the ocean that we never, ever, ever heard about again. And that's just an example of how she'll have so much going on that she almost just, like, forgets about them. And it's just, like, one example of how she'll just create so much stuff and never really tie them into anything, and you just start to, like, feel like the plot gets looser and looser and looser. Oh, this literally made me laugh so hard. The Viper Queen's outfits. What is with the tracksuits and, like, the high top velvet Converse? She got into the weeds with some of these outfits, man. Oh, I would say the ending scene, I mean, I didn't hate it, but I also thought it was just really, really outlandish. Like, I didn't understand. I couldn't even picture what was going on in my head. Like, the black hole eating the other black hole. Like, nobody was there. Nobody was gonna die. Also, do you know who should have died in this book? 100%. Baxian. Baxian should have died. Well, somebody should have died for one, because we just keep resurrecting every character because Hypaxia can just resurrect people. So, like, nobody dies. Like, when Bryce was dead at the end, I'm like, she's not dead. Like, how is Sarah J. Maas gonna bring her back? Like, she's gonna bring her back somehow. Like, how is it gonna happen? Like, you have no feelings towards any of these characters dying. Like, Therian, I'm like, he's not gonna die. He's gonna take her to a healer, take her to Hypaxia, and she's gonna save him, and he's not gonna die. Like, you know when you read Sarah J. Maas's books that none of her characters are gonna die, so you feel no real emotion when her characters do die. The only person that died in this book died willingly. You know what I mean? And I felt nothing about it because she wanted to die. Like, Baxian should have died in some sort of way. I don't know how, but he should have died. And then when Bryce was in the afterlife, she should have seen Baxian with Danica. So that way it would have been cute. It would have been like, aw, precious. But then you would also lose a character, and it would also be, like, really sad, like, when he did die. I just think it would have been so great. And I think that Sarah J. Maas misses so many of these amazing moments of death, of character death. Like Amryn, I think she should have died at the end of A Court of Wings and Ruin. Was it Wings and Ruin? Where she sacrificed herself and then became the big firebird or whatever. Like, she wanted to go back to her original form. Like, she kept saying that in all of the books. Like, she wanted to go back to her original form. She was stuck as, like, this fae, right? And so she finally got to go back to her original form, but then she comes back. Like, it would have been a perfect moment for her to just, like, be her original form and not exist anymore. But she didn't do it. And I wish Baxian would have died in this. I think Therian could have maybe died in this, and it would have been kind of interesting, but I think Baxian should have been the one to die, and I think we should have seen him in the afterlife with Danica, and I think it would have been chef's kiss. And it would have given us a death, at least one death, because we're in a freaking war with the most powerful beings alive, and you're telling me that not a single person dies. Not a single person. Don't buy it. So that's my thoughts on a quart of, was this upside down the whole time? Great. That's gonna bug me this whole entire video. So that is my thoughts on House of Flame and Shadow. I know it sounds like I didn't like it, but that's not true. Like, I did like aspects of it. It was an interesting, fun little reading process. Like, I enjoyed the overall story and kind of getting to know the characters. There was just a lot about this book that I didn't like, and it definitely was not Sarah J. Maas's strongest work. There was definitely things that bugged me. I definitely got bored in a lot of parts, and I think this book should have been edited way, way down, and I think it would have been so much more successful. So I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. It was fine reading it, but you know, Sarah J. Maas can do better than this. I know she can. She just needs to get out of the weeds. She needs to kind of remember who her audience is. Remember why she got famous, and just remember like what we want. Like, we don't think that her characters are alpha holes. We never have. We like these strong warrior men. We like these men to be like badass. That doesn't make them alpha holes. Like, can we not? It's just annoying. It reminds me of like when people call women like bitches. Anyways, that's my review, and I hope that you guys like this video. This is like crazy, chaotic. I had lots to say. I don't even know if I'm going to post this video if it ends up not being very good while I'm editing it, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this and liked my 2 cents. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'm sorry the book was upside down the entire time, but I'm not going to refilm this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video.